Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, it's the post-game pod from the Timberwolves win over the Pistons. We could say that they won the fight. We'll talk about the altercation and how that sparked the Wolves as they ended up blowing out a shorthanded Detroit team, but a Detroit team that really tried to start something at Target Center that the Wolves obviously finished. We'll break the whole thing down next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Today's episode is brought to us by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Happy Monday, everybody. Hopefully you had a fantastic weekend. It is a victory Monday after, I know it's a shorthanded Pistons team, but it was an impressive Timberwolves win. We'll talk about why. Of course, the response to the fight, tied for the most ejections in like 10 years in the NBA, an exciting game on Sunday. And the Wolves actually, I was impressed with the way they played, the way they responded in a physical battle, a number of guys stepping up for what ended up being a shorthanded Timberwolves rotation at least. And a lot to get into in this one, a lot of impressive individual performances, some overall good stick-to-itiveness and again, responsiveness from the Wolves. Plenty to talk about in the wake of this one. A big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also, of course, watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. And a reminder about the newsletter, you can subscribe at LockedOnDaily.com. It's one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free right now at LockedOnDaily.com. All right, so the Wolves came into this game after winning on Friday night against the Phoenix Suns, blowing out Phoenix once again, and winning that season series. This short 2-game homestand. The Timberwolves, of course, every win counts the same, but of course, it seems like it counts more now because there's only 7 games left on the schedule after this one. So they all matter. And the Wolves, after beating Phoenix on Friday night, came back against Detroit and started flat. They were down early in this game by double figures. They were down 14 at the end of the first quarter. They were down 16 in the first half. And for whatever reason, Malik Beasley decided it would be a good idea to kind of, do what Malik Beasley does, which is play the villain. And Timberwolves fans saw him do this with Minnesota. When they would go back to Denver, we saw him do it when he was with the Utah Jazz against the Wolves. And we know that that's what Malik Beasley is all about. That's fine. Whatever gets you going as a player, fine. Use whatever motivation, do the Aaron Rodgers thing, whatever. Have a chip on your shoulder. I get it. But he was so concerned with shouting about how Jalen Clark couldn't guard him. And then you had Isaiah Stewart taking exception to Dante DiVincenzo, I guess a little shove in the back, maybe. I think Stewart shot the ball and DiVincenzo yelled something at him. It was pretty minor, but Stewart gets a technical after standing over DiVincenzo in an open floor, a loose ball situation. And then Nas got upset about a foul from the Pistons. It was, I think it was on Ronald Holland. It actually wasn't that bad of a foul. I don't know why Nas was so upset. Everybody was just at an 11 at this point already. And Nas gets in his face. And of course, I'm not going to break the whole fight down, but DiVincenzo, steps in between and gives Holland a shove. And then he and Holland and of course, Isaiah Stewart, because why not? And they end up in the crowd, and Marcus Sasser from the Pistons is also ejected. And then both Nas and DiVincenzo are ejected. I would expect, I'm just guessing, I don't know. I don't think Nas will be suspended. DiVincenzo might be because he kind of aggressively put an elbow to the throat of Holland. And I mean, Holland actually took DiVincenzo or tried to take him to the ground in the crowd. So I think he probably gets a multi-game suspension. DiVincenzo, maybe one. I don't know. And then the craziest thing is maybe Pablo Prigioni getting into it with the Pistons staff, coaching staff. That was crazy. But the point, without breaking the whole fight down, the Pistons, I should point out, Pistons, normally I don't do the here's what people are saying on Twitter, but people are getting so upset about the Wolves trolling Malik Beasley at the end of the game with the shimmy thing. they're not doing it because they beat a shorthanded Pistons team. Obviously, Cade Cunningham's out. Tobias Harris missed the game too. I get it. They're shorthanded. They're not doing it because they beat a shorthanded Pistons team by 19. They're doing it because Malik Beasley was trying to troll the Timberwolves when in the first half of this game. And like what? Because he's one of the best catch and shoot 3-point shooters in the NBA. Fine. Like I'd love to see Malik Beasley score more than, I don't know, 3 buckets a game, not using pin downs. Like, I mean, how else is Malik Beasley scoring? So it's more, it was the troll after the troll from Malik Beasley. And then the fact that the Pistons acted like they wanted the smoke of coming into Target Center and doing that, and then completely falling apart after the Timberwolves kind of literally punched back, right? The Wolves, and this is what's so impressive, like as an actual takeaway from this game, this is the type of fight that Timberwolves have not shown hardly at all this season, and especially on their home floor. I mean, Minnesota defended their home court. They showed fight at home, kind of literally, really. Like they protected their home court in a way that they have not done all season. They got the crowd into it. They showed, and I'm not saying that they haven't cared, but sometimes they haven't shown that they care. And well, obviously you don't want to fight ever to spill into the crowd, and you don't ever really want to fight this type of a thing. It wasn't a real fight. There were no real punches thrown. This sort of like scuffle, it's a little reminiscent of the Chris Finch ejection in Phoenix that kind of got the Wolves rolling in the first place back in January when they were really struggling. And I don't know that this is like another catalyst of sorts as the Wolves go back out on the road against Denver on Tuesday. But to do this sort of thing at home in front of the home fans, to get them involved, it really, I mean, it led to a win in this game. And I think it can galvanize the team. It can also show the fans in Minnesota, look, hey, we do have fight in us. We do care. It may have taken it till late March to like really get there, but we're not going to be an easy out in the playoffs. We're going to defend our home floor. We're going to defend each other, or we're going to defend our teammates. And, you know, and as a reminder, like the Pistons aren't bad. They actually have the exact same record coming into the game as the Timberwolves. I know they were missing Cunningham. I know they were missing Tobias Harris. Fine. The Wolves were favored by, I think, 7.5 or something coming in. But given the fact the Wolves came out flat and they were down 16, and this is how they punched back. And it started with something that looked a lot like last year. The defensive intensity. And I would credit Jaden McDaniels, actually, first and foremost. I know he got into early foul trouble, but he kind of started it. And then DiVincenzo, when he got into it with Isaiah Stewart, was like, all right, if this is what we're doing, I'm doing it. Like, I'm in. I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to fight through every screen. I'm going to get low in a stance. I'm going to grab off the ball. I'm going to get away with whatever I can get away with and compete. The compete level is going to be at its absolute greatest. And then Nickeil Alexander-Walkeer, same thing. Got down in a stance as he does. Looked like he was guarding Jamal Murray across the timeline, picking him up 3/4 court in the playoffs last year. That's how he was guarding in this game. And it's not realistic. It just isn't for a team to do this for 82 games. They did it for probably 70+ games last year. That's how they defended. We haven't seen it much this year. We saw it in this game. And this was before the actual like ejections and stuff. This was like before and slightly after the Isaiah Stewart, the initial technical, the dust up. It's not really a dust up. The blow by between Stewart and DiVincenzo, and then the standover Stewart over DiVincenzo. Around that kind of those festivities in the early second quarter, that's where this defensive grittiness set in for the Wolves. And they carried it forward on the other side of the altercation. I mean, when all this happened in the second quarter, the Wolves were, I believe they were still down double figures. Yeah, they were down 10 when all this happened, 39-29. And it was right before this that the Wolves started defending the way that we were accustomed to seeing last year, and we've seen so seldom this year, especially at Target Center. And that's what we saw. We saw the Wolves get into the jerseys of the Pistons and, again, kind of literally took the fight to them. I want to talk a bit more about the defense and a couple of impressive individual performances. We'll talk about some of the box score stats that really pop out from this one too. And also some of the stuff that didn't show up in the box score. Like I thought probably one of the studs in this game for the Wolves, we'll get to studs and duds at the end, is somebody who only scored 2 points. We'll break all that down here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our title sponsors at Game Time. There's nothing like watching basketball live. The energy of the crowd, the sound of sneakers on the hardwood, and maybe even a celebrity sighting courtside. If you want to catch a game in person, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. By the way, Justin Jefferson, often at Wolves games, was, of course, courtside for this one as well. Game Time's new feature, Game Time Picks, filters out the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time scrolling through thousands of tickets. It's super easy to shop on the Game Time app. You can check in there. There's amazing deals on huge matchups upcoming. They always have their super deals that give you the best bang for your buck. And of course, the seat views are my favorite part. You can see what your view from your seat is going to look like before you buy, and there's no surprise fees, plus a lowest price guarantee so you can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKDOWNNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKDOWNNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right. So Timberwolves defensive effort. I want to spend some more time on this. The defensive intensity that started before the actual altercation and all the ejections was key. And then they kept it up after that. And Dante, of course, was a big part of it, and then he's ejected. But then you have Jalen Clark's in the game immediately after that. You have Mike Conley getting assigned to chase around Malik Beasley. As I referenced early in the show, Beasley was saying, he can't guard me. He can't guard me about Jalen Clark. So the Wolves said, all right, we'll put Mike Conley on you. Mike Conley is going to be a little bit craftier with the grabbing. He's going to get away with more because he's craftier there. And honestly, I think the refs are more likely to maybe not see it when Mike Conley does it. I think that's a real thing. And also Mike Conley is still just a really good kind of trail chase defender, really. And that's all Malik Beasley's doing, right? Like Jalen Clark's an outstanding on-ball defender, and Mike Conley's lost a half step there. But Mike Conley's crafty and savvy enough. He's chasing guys around and through screens and over screens and under screens and the whole thing. And that's all Malik's trying to do. He's trying to go up pit, and he's an outstanding shooter. Don't get me wrong, but he's just trying to catch and shoot out pin downs. And Mike Conley was in his jersey. I think he had maybe 4 points, maybe 6 points. He had a garbage time bucket after Conley started guarding him primarily. There's a little bit of Jaden on him, and Jalen Clark got some more cracks when Conley was off the floor. But Mike Conley guarding Malik Beasley was awesome. I mean, he had a ton of buckets early, and it wasn't just on Clark either, but putting Conley on him was a really smart adjustment by the Wolves. And undoubtedly, that's film that Jalen Clark is going to be studying and learning a bit about how good Mike Conley is at guarding off ball and guarding through some of those actions that the Pistons run for him. Because, I mean, let's face it, I mean, like, there's a world in which the Wolves play the Warriors in the play-in, right? And like the Wolves struggle with the Warriors this year. And what do the Warriors do? They're running all the off-ball stuff for Steph and others. Not especially now with Jimmy Butler, they have the ability to have him operate more. Obviously not quite the same without Klay Thompson there, but like a lot of that same stuff, right? Like, some of these teams with movement shooters that are so effective, and Beasley's one of the very best in the entire league, if not the best right now. And for the Wolves to have somebody like Mike Conley that can handle that with Jalen Clark and Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Anthony Edwards handling some of the on-ball stuff against the primary high-usage ball handlers at the point of attack, it's great to be able to use Mike Conley that way. I did mention Nickeil, actually. Same deal with Nickeil. Was awesome on the ball and off the ball in this game, was aggressive. There was a period after the ejections where the officials called everything because they were trying to like show that they've gained control of the game. And Nickeil kind of was frustrated, fought through that. I thought that was impressive. And the overall intensity of the Timberwolves defense was very, very impressive. And then they also stepped up the physicality on the glass. The Pistons really ate on the offensive glass in the first quarter. They had, I think double figures in second chance points, which is crazy. And I think they had 1 second chance bucket in the second quarter. The Wolves really kind of sealed off the paint. They started defensive rebounding like crazy. In fact, the Wolves had 44 defensive rebounds in this game, which is crazy. The Pistons had 28 defensive rebounds. The Wolves had 16 more defensive rebounds, and they out-rebounded the Pistons by 15 in this game. Now, with Isaiah Stewart ejected, there wasn't a whole lot of size for the Pistons. They got 14, I would call them entertaining minutes out of Paul Reid off the bench. Simone Fontecchio. Yeah. He was not impressive and also isn't like a true big. He's not going to mix it up. And Jalen Duren was in foul trouble. I mean, like there wasn't a whole lot of size to contend with. And Rudy Gobert led the charge. First of all, on the glass, Rudy had 25 rebounds. And shame on me for waiting until now to mention this. I mentioned it in my 1-minute video I did for Locked On following the game. 25 rebounds, 10 offensive, 15 defensive for Rudy. And Julius Randle had 8. Jaden McDaniels had 9. And Ant had 6 for the Wolves in this game. 59 rebounds for the Wolves. And it really began in earnest after the first quarter. The other thing they did is they really protected the paint well. Minnesota had 9 blocks in this game, which of course by itself isn't a true like paint protection number, but 9 is a nice number for a team to have in a game. And nobody had more than 2. Jay McDaniels had 2, Ant had 2, and Dante DiVincenzo had 2 in 10 minutes before he was ejected to give you some sense of his activity level. I mean, the dude played 10 minutes. He had 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 stocks in 10 minutes. That's how hard Dante was playing. And to have 9 blocks, have 2 apiece from 3 guys, and none of those 3 guys being Rudy Gobert. Rudy only had 1 block in this game. That's crazy. Overall points in the paint numbers, the Wolves are a +10, and it felt like they should have been a +20. And then the other thing that they started doing really well in the second quarter was turning defense into offense, which, of course, is something they've done super well. I go back to really January 1st again, right? When in roughly around the time of the Chris Finch ejection in Phoenix, like that's when the Wolves started to step up some of that defensive intensity. And not only that, but truly turn defense into offense. And they had 22 fast break points in this game. The Pistons actually only turned it over 7 times. But the Wolves were also they weren't just running off of turnovers. They were running off of misses. Detroit was firing away. Detroit shot under 36% from the field in this game. And it's a little unusual for the Wolves to turn defense into offense off of rebounds and not off of steals. I'm not going to cite all the cleaning the glass numbers today, but we've talked about this before. The Wolves still in pace aren't all that fast, but they're top 10 in running off of steals. Well, Minnesota only had 3 steals in this game. This was a fast-paced game that saw a lot of kind of not just threes, but shots get up on the rim. A ton of fouls in this game. Defensive rebounds available off of missed free throws. I mean, Detroit missed 8 free throws in this game. The Wolves missed 9. Excuse me. Is that right? Yeah. Each team missed 8 free throws, actually. And like a lot of rebounds to be had. And the Wolves were running off of defensive rebounds, which is not what we're accustomed to seeing from Minnesota. But they knew they could do it. And it's a bit of a dangerous game because Detroit does like to play fast, but the Wolves were under control in this game, weirdly enough, despite all the high emotions, and did a really good job doing that. So I would say the stick-to-itiveness to lock in and play so well defensively and then come out of the ejections and continue to do the same, to lock down the paint defensively and on the glass, and then to run off of missed Pistons shots, which there were plenty of. Again, Detroit was under 36% from the field and under 32% from 3. And the Wolves, for their part, actually shot the 3 pretty well, about 39% as a team, 12 for 31. They actually attempted 7 less threes than the Pistons, but they made the same number. A really nice overall offensive performance for Minnesota. But again, a lot of that was in the open floor. The Wolves had 22 fast break points. And again, the half court offense was good. But a lot of this fast break scoring happened post ejections, a little bit in the second quarter, but the third quarter again is really where the Wolves pulled away. They were plus 15 in the third quarter. And our guy, Jack Borman, tweeted this out. Of course, Jack does the postcast, a little plug. Him and Luke Inman do the postcast over at Locked On Sports Minnesota on YouTube. And actually, the episode right before this, if you're listening to the audio feed of Locked On Wolves, the episode before this is Jack and Luke. They go live after every game on YouTube. And then the audio gets posted to my Locked On Wolves feed right here. And actually, first week of March, I'll be hosting a couple episodes of the postcast. I've done a few this year, but typically it's Luke and Jack. Jack posted on X, in the third quarter alone, Ant and Julius Randle together had 29 points on 11 of 18 shooting. They were 5 of 10 outside the arc. They had 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and just 1 turnover, by themselves outscoring the Pistons 29-23 in the third quarter. And of course, the Wolves as a team scored 38. So they had 29 of the Wolves 38 and outscored the Pistons by 6 just as a duo compared to the entire Pistons team. So really strong third quarter. The game was effectively over. Ant started the fourth quarter to try and put it away. He did end up coming back in toward the end, and the Wolves officially put it away. And then, of course, finished it with the troll job on Malik Beasley. First Nikhil and then Ant, which, again, the history of that is Malik being Malik and doing that in the first half. Like, it's fair game. Understanding the Pistons are shorthanded. If the Wolves didn't beat a shorthanded Pistons team, what would the answer? What would the reaction be? It wouldn't be a positive one, right? You got to play who's in front of you, and you got to respond when you get down 16 and you get punched in the mouth, semi-literally. And the Wolves did respond, and that really matters. Let's talk about individual studs and duds. We'll do that next, and then we'll close out the show. All right, a lot of good ones today for individual studs and duds. I mean, only 7 guys that played extended minutes for Minnesota because Nas, Reid, and DiVincenzo both only played 10 before they were ejected. Nikhil ended up playing 27 off the bench, and then Jaylen Clark got 18 minutes, and I've been clamoring for him to play more. Of course, a couple of those garbage times, so really 16 rotation minutes. And again, it's one of those, like, I feel like you could have played even more. I thought, like, all in all, I mean, it's actually tough to say who played best for the Wolves because there were so many dudes that played really well. I would say, I mean, either Julius Randle or Rudy Gobert probably played the best. I teased Jaden McDaniels earlier. He only scored 2 points, and I mentioned how well he played. So, like, I might break the rules here and go 4 studs in this one. Let's start with Rudy. He was fantastic. We talked a little bit about what he did on the glass, 25 rebounds. He also had 19 points. He had a bunch of dunks in this game. I think he had 8 dunks on Friday against Phoenix, and he had like 5 more in this game. 8 of 16 shooting, which is actually pretty, like, not inefficient, but not as efficient as he typically is. Only 3 of 4 at the free throw line. I don't know how he only shot 4 free throws. It felt like he was at the line a lot more. 25 rebounds, 10 of them on the offensive glass, 1 block, was a plus 18 and only had 1 turnover in this game. Rudy locked down the paint against an undersized Pistons team and sealed the glass. He was really, really good in this game. Julius Randle also stud, 26, 8, and 5 for Julius. He got off to a slow start. And of course, he was fantastic against the Suns on Friday. He had like 12 first quarter points, was really the catalyst for the Wolves, getting them off to a strong start against the Suns on Friday. And also was like, it was really the start, but he played a really good game overall. This game was the opposite. He didn't start well, but then he came back in the game late in the first quarter. And from that point on, he was great. 26 points on 18 shots, 1 of 4 on threes, a perfect 7 of 7 at the line. 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and a block. Only 2 turnovers for Julius Randle, and played a bit of bully ball. Really looks comfortable doing that right now, and I know he always has, but like, really looks like he's comfortable in Minnesota now. Progressively, more and more here as we go through the season, and is still passing the ball so well too. A really nice game from him. My third stud is probably Jaden. It's probably Mike Conley. I mean, Conley had 17 points on 5 of 9, 2 of 2 on threes, hit kind of a backbreaker late in the game, was really good early. Somehow Mike Conley got to the line 7 times. A couple of those, I guess, were technical free throws, was 5 of 7. Weirdly, missed 2 consecutive free throws in this game. He was 3 for 7 on 2-point shots. Had a couple of floaters that he missed, but he also got all the way to the rim and scored a couple of times. The 17 points were big. 30 minutes is a lot for Mike Conley with no DiVincenzo. He played more. Finch, realizing the importance of this game, wasn't going to go, Jaylen Clark's not going to run the offense. He wasn't going to go too much to kill running the offense, and he wasn't going to go Rob Dillingham. So that was kind of the option. I'm going to go 4 studs, and I got to give one to Jaden McDaniels. I know he only had 2 points on 1 of 6. I know he was 0 for 2 on threes. I know he missed 2 free throws. Jaden had 9 rebounds in 30 minutes, was in early foul trouble, which last year or any year before that he would have folded up and gone home for the night, figuratively speaking, but like, would have taken him out. But he fought through it, was probably the best defensive player on the floor in this game. It felt like he had 7 blocks. He had 2 blocks, a steal, 3 assists, no turnovers, 9 rebounds, forced a couple of jump balls, was just everywhere. And like, about as good of a 2-point performance as somebody like Jaden McDaniels is going to have. I mean, there's some role players that's what they do all the time, but Jaden, typically when he's impactful, he's scoring a little bit too, especially nowadays. And he didn't score. He had 1 bucket in this game, but he was super active on defense. Active. I know he only had 1 offensive rebound, but he was keeping balls alive, tipping them around. A very impressive game from Jaden McDaniels for only putting up a deuce in the box score points wise. Those are my 4 studs. I don't have any duds. Everyone played well that's on the floor in this game. I mean, Luka Garza hit the 2 big free throws when the Pistons picked him to shoot after Naz Reid was ejected. Garbage time minutes were good for everybody that played. Naz and Dante were both good before they were ejected. Nikhil was very good defensively in this game and actually had 4 assists as well off the bench, hit a couple of threes. Ant was solid. I mean, Ant doesn't fall in either category for me in this one. He only had 5 points at halftime. And of course, he had gotten the, elbow to the nose from Kevin Durant on Friday, played a little bit less, had a strong second half in that game after not playing in the second quarter at all. And in this game, he played 36 minutes, 25 points on 19 shots, 4 of 10 on threes, 3 of 4 at the line, 6 boards, 4 assists, 2 blocks. He did have 4 turnovers, but only 5 points in the first half, 20 in the second half, and helped the Wolves put the game away. His a couple of those big threes late, like, it was important. It doesn't stand out. Like, he's not a stud for me. I thought he was, he was not one of the 4 Wolves' best players if you take the full body of the full 48 minutes, the full game. But he was a big part of that counterpunch for Minnesota, figuratively speaking. Thankfully, he wasn't on the floor when the ejections happened. But for him to kind of go toe-to-toe with the Pistons, I know he should have been the best player on the floor. But for him to stare down, what the Pistons and Malik Beasley were doing from outside the arc, be like, all right, I can do this too, and I can be aggressive and get to the basket. And he did all of the above. 5 of 9 on twos, 4 of 10 on threes, 3 of 4 at the line. He did a little bit of everything in this game. A really nice Ant game overall. So my takeaway is the way the Wolves responded after the ejections and how they stuck up for each other, how they held serve at, not just held serve, but protected the home floor, which they have not done with consistency all season, and how they kept pace in the Western Conference after the Warriors won again by a lot over the Spurs. By the way, the Pistons just beat the Cavs on Friday. So I know that, like, they've had guys out, but they're still playing really good basketball. So, like, let's not lose sight of that. The Clippers did lose on Sunday to Cleveland. So the Wolves are now a half game up on the Clippers, and they have the tiebreaker. So they're effectively a game and a half up on LA in the 7th spot in the West. They are a half game behind the Warriors. They're 1 back in the loss column, same number of wins as Golden State. And also, like, we should point this out. Memphis has now lost 2 in a row. The Wolves are only a game and a half out of 5 in the Western Conference. Of course, the 5 seed would end up playing the 4 in the first round, which currently is the Lakers, who are actually only a game ahead of the 5s. The Wolves are still 2.5 back of the 4 spot, which would be tough at this point. But, 1.5 back of Memphis. They play Memphis. They can't win the tiebreaker because the Grizzlies have won both games against Memphis so far, but they play Memphis here a week from Thursday. So next up is at Denver Tuesday night. We'll talk about that matchup on tomorrow's show. That's a TNT game, so it's late on Tuesday, a 9 p.m. game. And a big game, obviously. And of course, Denver has been playing much better in the Western Conference overall. I guess they're only 5-5 in their last 10, but they've won 2 in a row, and they're still in the 3 spot, 2 back of the 2 spot, and 1.5 clear of the Lakers, who are in 4th. With 7 left, the Wolves are not likely to catch Denver in the 3rd spot, but they do have the win in the season series. They've won both games, and they have the 1 left against Denver. So at Denver Tuesday, at Brooklyn Thursday, and then at Philadelphia on Saturday for the next 3 games for Minnesota. The first 3 games of a 5-game road trip, only 2 games left at Target Center. Very winnable games against Brooklyn and Utah to close out the regular season here in a couple of weeks. All right, that's all we got for you today. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk about any additional fallout from everything that happened Sunday. We'll talk about the Wolves-Denver matchup and more on Tuesday night. A big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. Of course, you can also watch on, on YouTube. Of course, you can follow on X at Locked On T-Wolves and at Beecken with 2 B's, 2 E's, CKEN. And you can subscribe to the daily Locked On Wolves newsletter at LockedOnDaily.com. Of course, the Locked On Wolves podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, the Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.